Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a Hollywood story that's kind of exploded, hasn't it? It went from this massive box office success to a full-blown legal war. We're talking about the drama around the movie adaptation of Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us.
Yeah, it's a film that really hit a nerve, pulled in almost, what, $350 million globally.
Yeah.
And that was hugely boosted by the book's popularity, over 3 million copies sold.
Yeah.
Mostly driven by TikTok.
Right. The TikTok effect was massive.
Yeah.
And the casting, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, I mean, that created a huge buzz initially. The announcement got something like 5 million social media engagement, just huge anticipation.
Exactly. It was really set up to be this major cultural moment.
Which makes the current situation, this legal tangle, so, well, fascinating and pretty concerning, too. So our mission today is to unpack this really complex fight between Lively and Baldoni. We want to look at the allegations, the counter-allegations, understand what's really going on behind the headlines, and what it might mean for the industry. All right, so let's start at the beginning. What actually triggered this whole thing?
Okay, so the first big move came from Blake Lively. On December 20th, 2024, she filed a complaint. Not a lawsuit initially, but a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department.
That's the state agency that handles discrimination, harassment claims, right?
Exactly. And her core claim, sexual harassment and creating a hostile work environment, directed at Justin Baldoni during filming.
And we're not just talking about general feelings of discomfort here. Reports suggested some pretty specific things.
That's right. Sources familiar with the complaint said Lively alleged Baldoni made inappropriate comments about her appearance, her body, particularly during intimate scenes.
Okay.
And here's a key point. She alleges often happened when the intimacy coordinator wasn't present.
Which is a big deal, right? Those coordinators became standard practice post-#MeToo precisely to prevent situations like this.
Absolutely. Their absence, if true, directly questions whether those important industry protocols were followed. It immediately raises red flags.
Those protocols are definitely there for a crucial reason. And that initial complaint, that wasn't the final step, was it? Things moved pretty quickly after that.
They really did. Just 11 days later, December 31st, end of the year, Lively filed a formal lawsuit, this time in federal court, the Southern District of New York.
So moving it to federal court signals she's really serious about pursuing this legally.
It does. It's a significant escalation.
And the lawsuit itself, what was she asking for? It seems substantial.
It was. The exact damages weren't specified, but legal analysts watching the case suggested it could easily top $50 million, judging by similar entertainment industry lawsuits.
Wow.
But it wasn't just about the money. The suit also aimed to legally bar Baldoni from directing or starring in any sequel to It Ends With Us.
Right. So hitting him professionally, potential impacting the future of the whole franchise. That's a major objective.
Definitely. It suggests a desire for consequences that go beyond just financial compensation.
Lively's attorney, Sarah Mitchell, also put out a statement framing it as being about setting clearer boundaries, protecting everyone in the creative process, positioning it as a wider issue.
Precisely. Trying to make it about more than just this one production. And the lawsuit added another layer. Lively claimed she tried to raise these concerns earlier, back in April 2024, with Sony Pictures executives.
Maybe she felt dismissed.
That's the allegation, yes. That her concerns weren't taken seriously enough by the studio at the time. Which, if true, points to potential issues within the studio system itself.
And there was also something about other people on set having concerns, too.
Yes. The lawsuit mentioned 3 unnamed female crew members who had apparently also raised concerns separately about Baldoni's behavior on set.
Unnamed, but suggesting it wasn't an isolated experience.
Exactly. It hints at a potential pattern that her legal team is likely trying to build a case around.
You know, for anyone who knows the book or saw the film, the irony here is pretty stark. The story deals so heavily with themes of domestic abuse.
It's a really powerful, unsettling contrast. And the public reaction reflected that. It was fast and very strong. The hashtag #Believely just exploded online.
Yeah, I remember seeing that everywhere.
Over 2 million posts in the first 48 hours alone.
Yeah.
That kind of immediate public support definitely adds another dimension of pressure.
Okay, so that lays out Lively's side of the story, the initial allegations. But this is, as we said, complex. There's another side. Let's move to Act 2. Justin Baldoni fighting back. And he didn't just deny it. He came out swinging, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. It was a very aggressive counter-strategy. On the same day Lively filed her federal lawsuit, December 31st, Baldoni filed his own lawsuit.
Against Lively?
Not initially. First, against the New York Times.
Really? The newspaper?
Yes, for $250 million. alleging libel and something called false light invasion of privacy.
Okay, false light.
Yeah.
That means portraying someone misleadingly, even if not everything is technically false,
Yeah.
damaging their reputation.
Exactly. His argument was that their big article on the controversy, power, and misconduct, the "It Ends With Us" controversy, contained false information and didn't properly check Lively's claims before publishing.
And the Times reaction.
They stood firmly by their reporting,
Hmm.
issued a statement saying they were confident in their journalism, pointing out they'd interviewed, I think it was 12 different cast and crew members for this story.
So that immediately widened the whole conflict. Now it involves a major media outlet, too.
Right. But Baldoni wasn't finished. His next move was directly against Lively and some people close to her.
Okay, this is where it gets even more personal.
Definitely. On January 16th, 2025, he filed a massive countersuit, $400 million.
$400 million. Against who?
Against Blake Lively, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist Leslie Sloan.
Wow. And the charges.
Very serious ones. Extortion, defamation, and alleging a coordinated campaign to basically seize creative control of the movie and destroy his reputation.
Extortion and defamation, those are heavy accusations. A huge escalation from the initial dispute.
Massive. And his public statements really hammered this point home. He insisted it was never about harassment.
Right, he framed it purely as a fight over creative control.
Exactly. He claimed Lively wanted to turn the film into her personal showcase, and that he became the target because he was trying to protect Colleen Hoover's original story. It's a completely different narrative.
And his legal filing apparently went into a lot of detail about this alleged power struggle.
It did. It was a lengthy document, something like 67 pages. It described tensions starting way back in pre-production.
Before filming even began.
Yeah. He claimed Lively kept demanding significant script changes to expand her role, changes he felt would compromise the original narrative. When he pushed back, especially on things affecting Hoover's story, he alleged she became hostile.
So, painting a picture of a fundamental disagreement about the film itself.
Right. And his legal team, led by Brian Friedman, who's a big name in Hollywood law, really pushed this idea of a calculated smear campaign.
A smear campaign orchestrated because she didn't get her way creatively.
That's their core argument. And they even launched a website, putting up text messages and emails they claimed backed up their version of events. A very public strategy.
Trying to win in the court of public opinion, it sounds like. There was one specific text message they highlighted, wasn't there? Allegedly from Lively.
Yes, they got a lot of media attention.
Mm-hmm.
The text, supposedly from March 2024, allegedly said something like, "This isn't working. Either we fix the script my way, or this whole project is going to become a PR nightmare for everyone involved."
Okay. His team presenting that as basically a threat.
Exactly, as evidence of her trying to strong-arm him on creative decisions.
And the countersuit also pulled in Ryan Reynolds directly. What were the allegations against him?
Baldoni's suit claimed Reynolds used his industry clout, his influence, to pressure Sony executives to take Lively's side.
How?
By allegedly threatening to pull out of future projects with Sony if they didn't back Lively.
Which Reynolds' team denied.
Strongly. They called the claims completely fabricated. But it really underscores the kind of high-stakes power plays that can happen behind the scenes.
It really does sound like two completely different realities being described here, each side presenting facts that just don't line up with the others. It's very Rashomon-esque.
That's a perfect way to put it. And just when you think it can't get more complicated, Act 3 introduces, well, Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman.
Right. That part made me do a double take. Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman might get subpoenaed. How on earth did they get dragged into this?
Well, it comes down to their friendships. We all know Taylor Swift and Blake Lively are very close friends, right? Swift's even godmother to one of their kids.
Yeah, that's very public knowledge.
And similarly, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds have that famous long-running friendly feud, and they just did the Deadpool movie together, so very tight connections there.
Okay, so the friendships are clear, but what are they supposed to have witnessed or done that's relevant legally?
So according to court filings from Baldoni's team in February 2025, they're alleging that Swift and Reynolds actually pressured Baldoni to give in to Lively's script demands.
Pressured him how?
They point to a specific dinner meeting, allegedly at Taylor Swift's apartment, back in February 2024. They claim Jackman was there too, and that during this dinner, pressure was applied. Baldoni's team claims Swift and Jackman have direct knowledge of conversations where threats were made about tanking the film if creative demands weren't met.
Wow, using their star power to lean on him, that's a huge claim.
It's explosive. And if true, their testimony could be incredibly important.
How so?
Well, as legal analysts like Marissa Rodriguez have noted, in these kinds of he said, she said creative control battles, having witnesses who are actually there for key conversations can be decisive. If Swift or Jackman backed up Baldoni's story about that dinner, it could seriously support his claim that this was always about the script, not harassment.
But Lively's camp must be pushing back hard on this.
Oh, absolutely. Sources close to her are calling it smoke and mirrors, basically a distraction tactic.
A classic misdirection was the phrase used, I think.
Right. Their argument is that Swift and Jackman probably know very little about the actual day-to-day working environment on the set itself, and this is just Baldoni trying to muddy the waters and deflect from the original allegations.
So as of now, late April 2025, have subpoenas actually gone out?
Not officially served, no. But reports say reps for both Swift and Jackman know it's a possibility.
And Swift's publicist made a statement.
Yeah, Trepain said Swift would cooperate if legally required, but stressed she has no firsthand knowledge of the workplace environment. Kind of walking a fine line there.
I bet. And the mere mention of Swift and Jackman possibly testifying. Social media must have gone nuts.
Completely predictable frenzy. Hashtag Swift Justice started trending for days. It just shows how much bigger this story gets when you involve names of that magnitude.
It really does feel like a movie playing out. Okay, so we've got the core dispute, the countersuit, the celebrity entanglement. But the drama doesn't stop there. Act 4 dives into the world of PR battles and, incredibly, publicist lawsuits.
Yes, it's like a whole subplot opened up. The high-stakes legal fight has triggered conflicts between the publicists involved, too. Specifically, Justin Baldoni and his former publicist Stephanie Jones from Clarity PR. They worked together for 7 years.
So what happened there? Another lawsuit?
Exactly. Just a few days after Lively's initial complaint surfaced in December 2024, Jones sued Baldoni, his company, and his new PR team for $5 million.
$5 million? Why?
She alleged they conspired to damage her reputation and basically steal her clients after she was fired in November 2024.
And why was she fired, according to her?
Her lawsuit claims it was because she raised concerns internally about how Baldoni was handling the disagreements with Lively. She said she advised him to be more collaborative, essentially trying to de-escalate things.
So she's claiming she was let go for trying to prevent this whole blow-up. And then they went after her clients.
That's her narrative, that she became a scapegoat. And yes, she alleges Baldoni's new PR firm contacted her clients, bad-mouthing her handling of the situation to try and get them to jump ship. It speaks volumes about how crucial controlling the narrative is.
But Baldoni's side, I assume, has a completely different story about why she was let go. And they've countersued her, too.
They sure have, with a $7.5 million countersuit against Jones, filed in March 2025. Baldoni and his current publicist, Jennifer Abel, alleged that Jones leaked private, confidential communications to Lively's team.
Leaked them to Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan.
That's the specific allegation. They claim she did it out of revenge for being fired. And they say they have proof forensic analysis of email metadata allegedly showing she forwarded confidential strategy documents right after she was terminated.
So their argument is that her leaks are what actually fueled Lively's lawsuit and the negative New York Times story.
Precisely. They're claiming her actions caused a catastrophic sequence of events and incalculable damage, painting her as the source of their problems.
And Jones's response to their countersuit?
A strong denial. Her lawyers called it a desperate attempt to distract and pointed out the timing filed right before a mediation was scheduled in her lawsuit against Baldoni.
It's just layers upon layers of legal fighting.
It really is. And as crisis communications experts often point out, the public relations battle, trying to win over public opinion, can sometimes feel more intense than the legal one, especially early on.
Both sides seem keenly aware of that, actively feeding the media and trying to shape how this is all perceived.
Definitely. Which leads us perfectly into Act 5, the actual courtroom battle versus the ongoing trial in the court of public opinion.
Okay, so the main legal action is happening in the Southern District of New York. The judge is Louis Lehman. What do we know about him? Is he suited for this kind of case?
Judge Lyman is fairly experienced, appointed in 2019. He's handled complex cases before, things like securities fraud, intellectual property. Importantly, he does have some background in entertainment law, so he should understand the specific dynamics at play here.
And to make things, well, slightly less complicated, Lively's lawsuit and Baldoni's countersuit have been combined.
Yes, they were consolidated back in January 2025. It makes sense procedurally, same core facts, same witnesses, same arguments. It avoids potential chaos and conflicting rulings from separate trials.
Now, both sides have tried to get the other's case thrown out already, right? Motions to dismiss. Where does that stand?
Those motions are really critical. Hearings are scheduled for May 2025. If Judge Lyman grants either motion to dismiss, it could drastically change the landscape, maybe even end one or both suits before a full trial.
And the process of gathering evidence, discovery, that's been smooth sailing.
Not exactly. It sounds like it's been pretty contentious. Lively's team has pushed for confidentiality, arguing Baldoni's requests for information are way too broad, too intrusive.
While Baldoni's team wants to talk to everyone.
Pretty much. They wanted to depose studio execs, other cast and crew, even Colleen Hoover herself, who, remember, has stayed completely silent publicly through all this. Discovery fights are pretty common in big cases like this.
And Judge Lehman already had to step in and tell them to stop fighting it out in the press?
He did. Back in February 2025, he gave both sides a pretty stern warning. Basically said, litigate in my courtroom, not in the media. And even threatened sanctions, like fines, if they kept trying to sway public opinion with leaks or press conferences.
Which seemed necessary after Baldoni's team held a press conference and Lively's team distributed press packets.
Exactly. Those kinds of moves clearly irritated the judge.
But despite that warning, the PR war seems to rumble on, maybe just a bit more subtly. We've definitely seen media outlets and other public figures taking sides.
Absolutely. The public conversation hasn't stopped, and it's still very divided. You had Joe Rogan coming out strongly for Baldoni on his huge platform, while people like America Ferrera and Amber Heard publicly supported Lively, often linking it to broader #MeToo issues.
And Baldoni's team still has that website up, thelawsuitinfo.com, right? Sharing their side directly. That seems like a bold move given the judge's warning.
It is. The legal experts were kind of split on the wisdom of that. It gives them a direct channel, sure, but it could also backfire with a judge or a future jury. It's risky.
Lively, on the other hand, seems to have kept a lower public profile overall, though there was that one moment on the SNL anniversary show.
Right, the SNL 50 special. She made a comment about directors who don't know their boundaries. Yeah. Her reps tonight, it was about this, but, a lot of people read it as a subtle jab.
It shows how everything they say or do gets scrutinized now.
Totally. And social media is relentless. Constant updates, speculation, #Team Blake versus #Team Justin, TikTokers doing deep dive analyses. It really is like a second trial happening online.
That Columbia Journalism Review piece, Trial by TikTok, really nailed how these platforms changed the game for celebrity justice, didn't it?
It did. Blurring the lines between legal facts and public perception in a way we haven't really seen before.
Okay, so the legal and PR fights are intense. But what about the practical fallout? Act 6 looks at the impact on the industry, on actual projects and careers. This isn't just abstract legal maneuvering, it's having real consequences.
No, absolutely. Very tangible ones. Sony Pictures, for instance, has reportedly put the It Ends With Us sequel on indefinite hold.
Which, given the first film's success, is a big deal financially for them.
Huge. And not only that, but pre-production on the next book's adaptation, It Starts With Us, has also apparently been suspended. So the whole franchise seems frozen right now because of this.
And it's affecting other projects, too, beyond just this specific series.
It seems so. Reports suggest Baldoni's planned sequel to his Disney Plus movie Clouds got pulled from their schedule. Disney hasn't directly linked it, but the timing is noticeable. And similarly, Blake Lively's role in The Husband's Secret adaptation has reportedly been delayed. The studio cited scheduling issues, but again, it's hard not to see a potential connection given the circumstances. These disruptions are pretty common when key talent is involved in major litigation.
Even things like brand endorsements have been hit. I know Lively has her Betty Buzz drinks and Baldoni has his podcast.
Right. Lively's brands apparently took an initial dip but then bounced back. But Baldoni's Man Enough podcast, which ironically deals with themes of healthy masculinity, has reportedly seen a significant drop in listeners. And he's apparently had speaking gigs canceled too.
Wow, so it hits their reputations and their bottom lines across the board.
Definitely. But maybe the most significant industry-wide effect is how this has reignited conversations about on-set safety and protocols, especially relating back to #MeToo.
And SAG-AFTRA, the actors union, actually updated its guidelines.
They did. In February 2025, they released new specifics about how intimacy coordinators should communicate and operate on set. They didn't name this case, but the timing and focus strongly suggest it was a factor.
So a real-world case potentially leading to changes in industry standards.
It looks that way. And it's not just union guidelines. Entertainment lawyers are saying production companies are already changing contract language,
How so?
getting much more specific about defining creative control, outlining processes for script approval, setting clear rules for how directors and actors communicate, dispute resolution mechanisms, trying to prevent this kind of messy public fight from happening again.
Like a cautionary tale prompting proactive changes.
Exactly.
Okay, so bringing it all together in Act 7, looking ahead, what does this whole saga mean for Hollywood long term? It feels like it could really shift things.
I think it could. It definitely has the potential to set new precedents for how Hollywood handles both workplace misconduct claims and these intense creative control battles. It might force a real reevaluation of the power dynamics on set.
And could it change how book adaptations are handled, especially regarding authors' rights and input?
That seems likely. You hear that literary agents are already pushing for stronger contracts to protect authors' creative involvement when their books get adapted. Colleen Hoover's silence throughout this whole thing kind of highlights how tricky that position can be for an author right now.
And financially, for the studios, could this change how they approach things like insurance or budgeting?
It's very possible. When you see lawsuits demanding $50 million or countersuits for $400 million, that kind of number makes studios reassess risk. They might need bigger insurance policies or larger contingency funds set aside for potential legal costs on big productions.
And then there's the intersection with the #MeToo movement. It's complex, isn't it? Concerns about huge countersuits potentially discouraging victims versus ensuring everyone gets due process.
That's a really critical point, and there's no easy answer. It's a delicate balance. How do you ensure accountability and protect victims' rights to come forward without fear, while also protecting reputations from potentially false or inflated claims? This case, whatever the outcome, is going to be analyzed for years in terms of its impact on those crucial issues.
It really is just a gripping, complex story with potentially huge ramifications for the whole industry.
Absolutely. A stark reminder of how fame, big business, and personal conduct can collide in really dramatic ways in Hollywood.
So let's try and wrap up this deep dive. We started with the massive success of It Ends With Us, this highly anticipated adaptation. Then came the bombshell. Blake Lively's allegations of sexual harassment and a hostile work environment against director Justin Baldoni.
Which triggered an equally fierce response from Baldoni, denying the claims, framing it as a creative control dispute, and launching that huge $400 million countersuit against Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist, plus the separate suit against the New York Times.
Then we saw the entanglement of A-listers like Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman potentially being subpoenaed, and the side drama of the publicists suing each other.
All while the main legal case moves forward, with Judge Lyman presiding, motions being argued, discovery battles being fought, and a trial date now set for March 2026.
And alongside that formal legal process, the nonstop trial in the court of public opinion playing out on social media and in headlines.
And we've seen the real-world consequences. The It Ends With Us franchise seemingly on ice, other projects potentially delayed or canceled, impacts on brand deals and public personas.
Plus, the industry reacting, updating guidelines, changing contract language, revisiting on-set protocols.
It's just crucial to keep in mind how many layers there are here. Conflicting stories, ongoing legal fights.
Yeah.
The final chapter is far from written.
Absolutely. Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. Think about this. How does this whole situation reflect the power shifts happening in Hollywood today? And the intense scrutiny now placed on workplace behavior, especially in creative fields?
What might the eventual outcome, whatever it is, signal for future movie productions? For that delicate balance of power between actors, directors, studios, and authors?
Ultimately, what does this very public, very messy case tell us about where fame, money, art, and personal conduct intersect and sometimes collide in the entertainment world today? Something to definitely keep thinking about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.